What are some of the biggest risks for Nvidia in 2025 and 2026? That's actually what I want to talk about in today's episode. And some of you might be wondering, hey, Jose, are you switching up on us? You are this ultimate Nvidia bull. How come you're doing a video like this? So let me just say, I have no intentions of selling right now. Nvidia is my biggest position with over 25% of my overall portfolio. But at the same time, I have learned as an investor of over a decade of investing already, I think it's wild, that it's important to understand both the bullish and bearish case. Even though the bearish case might get us mad sometimes or be like, hey, look, that doesn't make sense. I always think it's important to understand both sides of the coin, right? Because there's always something that could go wrong in the overall market, and it's important to be prepared. So in today's episode, I just want to be more of a journal, just kind of share my overall thoughts of what are things I am keeping an eye out for 2025. I'm also going to give some of my predictions for 2025 for Nvidia. So let's take a closer look. If this is your first time here, make sure to hit the thumbs up, make sure to hit the subscribe button, check out the pinned comment for special offer at fool.com/Jose, and check out my free daily semiconductor newsletter, whatthechiphappen.com. With earnings coming up, you're not going to want to miss this newsletter. So let's get started.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so I want to start off by kind of explaining why I want to do this video. And I mentioned in the intro that Nvidia is a big position in my overall portfolio, and it's a high dollar-wise as well, right? We're talking about six figures in one position. So this is money that can definitely change my life. So I have to understand both the risk and reward for Nvidia. There might be some investors who have 100% of Nvidia. Maybe this video might be helpful for you. Again, I'm not trying to dictate if one should sell or buy. It's just me sharing my overall thoughts. I am going to say maybe your position is like 5% or less than your overall portfolio. Then you do already have kind of this risk to reward balance where you don't really have to worry exactly too much about the risk associated with one company, right? And those are some of the trade-offs you have depending on portfolio management. If you have kind of one position being so big, it's more crucial to understand what's happening with that business. If you have one position being extremely small, obviously you can benefit somewhat. You won't benefit the full effect if you're right, but you also control a lot of the risk. And because for me, it's a big position, I have to be focused in this market. Now, again, at the moment, I am holding on to Nvidia. I'm not planning on selling any shares at the moment. And in my prediction, I believe 2025 will be really strong for Nvidia as both a business and a stock. I don't have a price target, right? I'm not one that does that. But overall, we are seeing a lot of spending in the AI market, and a lot of the spending was already pre-planned by a lot of big tech. So 2025, I expect is going to be a huge growth year for Nvidia, coming after 2024 already being an amazing year for the company. So overall, I am bullish for 2025. Now, I believe most of the risk for Nvidia is coming after 25 and it's going to be in 2026. And this is, I think for Nvidia and AI investments, the biggest thing and the biggest risk is AI came out of nowhere, right? We saw AI revenue come out of nowhere, where we see Nvidia become from a $100 billion company to a $1 trillion company, right? Or multi-trillion dollar company and multi-$100 billion company, right? So it shows you how quickly this AI market has transformed the overall industry. Nvidia is one of those few companies that has benefited both in revenue growth and actual earnings per share growth as well, right? So this is why this is the king of AI, because they are benefiting from their financial results in both top line and bottom lines and seeing margin growth as well. Now, there are a lot of risks that I think investors should consider. And the reason I think it's important to understand this risk is because these risks can kind of show up out of nowhere or can really materialize out of nowhere, and the stock price can react very heavily or very quickly, right? We've seen in the past 5 years how Nvidia has jumped up dramatically. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these risks come true in 2025 or 2026, where we would have a double-digit percentage drop on Nvidia, right? I don't think that's completely impossible. Again, the chances of these risks coming up are pretty rare, and the market kind of priced that. But if they do occur, obviously it could be sentiment, like it could be value destruction for the overall stock. Now, I want to say the first kind of big risk that I have for Nvidia, or the first topic I want to discuss, is competition, right? When we think of Nvidia, we think of competitors, we think of AMD, we think of everybody else, ASIC solutions like Broadcom, and big tech developing their own AI chip. For me, competition is definitely not a risk for 2025 or even for 2026. I think Nvidia is so far ahead in their overall, not only, it's no longer about the hardware, right? There might be other companies who theoretically could be better at designing a chip, but it's no longer just a chip space. It's a software space, right? It's an infrastructure space. It's a whole system space, right? It's a multi-layer space. So even if you have a better chip, it doesn't necessarily mean you're better than Nvidia, because at the end of the day, it's total cost of ownership, and total cost of ownership is not just dependent on cheaper hardware. It's dependent on the solutions that are provided, the amount of hours it's going to take for you to put up this system versus a competitor system, the amount of hours it's going to take you to run this software on NVIDIA versus another competitor software in their native solution. So competition for me is not a risk in 2025 or 2026, either being AMD, either being ASIC players, either being big tech developing their own solutions. The next one, this one is one that somewhat is a little bit in the unknown for me. I don't know how it's going to go. And 2025, we might see more regulations in the semiconductor space, right? We did see that ending this year or ending this Biden administration, the White House did release more regulations for the AI market. And that's something we've talked about in previous episodes already, right? It's not new news. Now, obviously, the market is expecting that the Trump administration might either ease up on some of these regulations and restrictions. Now, that is definitely what the market is pricing in, but is the market right? I believe there is kind of a coin flip, where it could be true that the Trump administration eliminates a nice of these regulations in the AI market. It could also be true that he might even go harder, or the Trump administration might even go harder on AI regulations, or it could be somewhere in the middle where they keep the current regulations, but maybe shift them a little bit to make them a little bit easier and still be both regulating the market, but good for American companies. So I think regulations is one of the biggest unknowns and kind of variable flags, which are variables for the AI market. I don't know how 2025 would be impacted too much, but this is something that I do believe can lead to either strong gains or strong decreases in 2026 or the end of 2025. So those are some of the risks that I think investors should consider when it comes to regulations. Is while the market is pricing in that maybe these regulations are not gonna go through, there's always the risk that they can actually stay. They can even get harder, right? Or they can be a mixture of some easements happening in the regulations. I think that's probably one of my current risks that I actually am keeping an eye out. The second one is 2026 spending, right? Right now, we're gonna see, I'm gonna guess for 2025, big tech is going to continue to spend lots and lots of money, right? The amount of data centers that are expected to be built out, the amount of computational power we still need for current AI developments is still pretty high. Now, will this shift in 2026? Will it drop down lower? Will it go higher? And I think at the end of the day, the only way that this can go higher is if one thing continues to happen. If AI innovations continue to go up, right? Because if AI innovation continues to increase, if we start to see better large language models, if the improvements of large language models continues to go higher, then that gives big tech players a reason to continue to invest. But if for some reason the incremental improvements of large language models or all these types of AI solutions starts to deteriorate, then this is a reason why big tech could slow down. And I think a lot of that is going to have to, as an investor, we're not only going to have to focus on earnings transcript of big tech companies, we're also going to need to be understanding of how AI is evolving for the business space, for the consumer space. And there's a lot of companies and actual products that investors can keep an eye out to kind of see the overall innovation curve. Now, another risk, and one that I didn't have written down here, is, in my opinion, the supply chain market, right? NVIDIA's products and NVIDIA's components, their chips, their systems are so dependent on a lot of other companies as well, right? It's not just NVIDIA. NVIDIA is dependent on TSMC. NVIDIA is dependent on Micron and SK Hynix for HBM. They're dependent on other companies for interconnect, and the list goes on and on, right? This whole NVIDIA empire is brought up by a lot of different companies. And if there's a broken link in one of these supply chains, it could create some short-term negativity. Now, I think that short-term negativity in the supply chain is something that would just impact the stock for maybe a quarter or two. It would be more short-term pain. As long as everything else is still bullish, I think Nvidia will continue to do right. But in forms of quick price action deterioration, a supply chain hurdle can definitely impact the overall performance of the stock. So those are some of the things I am kind of just wanted to share my overall thoughts of what are some risks that can impact Nvidia in 2025 and 2026. Like I mentioned, I think for Nvidia, they're going to have a good year, but for a lot of these companies, it's what's going to happen next year. Right. And again, maybe if you have a small position or a small portfolio, a position in NVIDIA, something like this is not very crucial for you. But there are, I'm guessing, a few investors that have a good portion of NVIDIA as their overall portfolio size. I mean, even me. And a lot of these news can be something that you should be prepared, if they come true, can really cause stock prices to drop. And I'm going to say the risk that I mentioned today are not impossible. I wouldn't say any of the risks that I mentioned today are anywhere impossible of happening. Now, things to watch, in my opinion, are the following. I'm always going to be watching TSMC earnings, right? TSMC earnings are very, very crucial. I'm most likely going to be doing a video after they report earnings this week. And the reason TSMC's earnings are crucial is not because they're part of the overall supply chain. While that is the crucial, important part, I think TSMC's management is my overall reason for listening to that call. TSMC's management is very straightforward. They say it how it is. Even if it's bad news, even if it's good news, even if it's just neutral news, they say it how it is. And I think if we were to ever see a slowdown in the AI market or in AI demand, TSMC would not sugarcoat it and would just say it how it is. So TSMC earnings every quarter is super, super crucial. The second thing is big tech earnings, right? Big tech earnings, the ones that are spending the big money on NVIDIA are going to be important players to understand how the market is going, right? And what I think is going to be crucial is I don't think these big tech players are simply going to say, you know what, we're going to slow down on NVIDIA purchasing right now. We have to read in between the lines sometimes, right? Because sometimes these big tech players don't really want to make enemies. They are sometimes worried it might affect their stock prices. So they try to bury some things in between the lines. So I think it's going to be crucial to read the transcript, to listen to the earnings call, and see if there's any change in tones with management and AI investments. The third thing is big tech CEO interviews, right? We do see like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon, they go on a lot of interviews and a lot of podcasts. We also see a lot of other big players like Nvidia CEO Jensen, Microsoft CEO, Google CEO, all do interviews outside of the traditional financial market. And I think listening from there in those interviews can be crucial at picking up any form of weakness in the AI market, in AI innovations. So some of those interviews are going to be crucial in the investment process and deep dive analysis or due diligence of the AI space. Now, the final thing that I think we're going to have to take a closer look at is AI investments. I think ChatGPT and OpenAI are probably going to be my favorite to look at. Are they continuing to release new products on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? Are these products pretty cool? Are they not that cool? Has innovation slowed down? What is going on with the AI market? And the best way is to follow the top AI companies, maybe Grok, XAI, maybe ChatGPT, maybe Anthropic, And maybe some of the other players where AI generation and image generations are also picking back up. So those are the things that if you are an Nvidia investor, you're going to want to keep a closer eye on. And this is the channel that you're going to want to watch to make sure you're up to date with it. But like I said, full disclaimer, sometimes the moment these news come out, this could be a reason why the stock could drop multiple digits. And that's why I think it's crucial to understand your risk to reward tolerance. Every investor has a different risk to reward tolerance. And remember, no investment is guaranteed, no matter how strong your thesis is. And I want to say, to own Nvidia, you have to be extremely, extremely bullish in the AI market. And that is something that I am, right? I am bullish that the AI market is going to continue to innovate, but it's such a new market. There's so many things that can change throughout times that is crucial for you to be up to date to what's happening in this space. So I know this was more of a lecture, but again, I just want to share my overall thoughts, as sometimes you might think I'm just a perma bull for Nvidia, but in multiple episodes, I have said that, hey, look, because even though this company is dominating, there is still risk. And though that is just what I want to share. So I think 2025 is going to be great for Nvidia, but the real question is going to be what happens next? What happens in 2026? So let me know your thoughts on the overall let me know your thoughts on the comments below. Appreciate if you watched this video. Again, it was just me rambling, but sometimes this is a great way for me to just share my overall thoughts, not only with you, the viewers, but also to myself. So to here, have a good day and see you all next time.